Ow! That's it. I've had enough. You guys are fired.
Does that mean you're going to burn us?
No, Michael, it means we don't work here anymore.
Welcome, everybody, to No Buzzwords. I am Michael. This is Adam.
Hey.
And we are your co-hosts, and we are happy to welcome Jim Keaton, pastor, and all-around fantastic gentleman, a Kitsap legend.
And he has the best of haircuts.
If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like the video, subscribe. I think the bell is supposed to alert you as
Share
well.
it with everyone.
Share it with people. If you're on Spotify, I don't know if there's anything to do on Spotify. If you can follow it on Spotify, I think.
I like Spotify. You can listen in the car on Spotify, and you don't have to watch the video, but on YouTube, you have to have the video up to watch us. So don't do that in the car.
Yeah. If you have Spotify, do it. We'll work on getting it over to Apple Podcasts, too, one day.
One day.
Anyways, good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us for episode 7 of No Buzzwords.
It's a good number.
Yep.
Ooh. Wait, 7 is the number of completion? Or 3 is the number of... 3 is
7.
perfect, 7's completion. Okay, we're complete. So, I had a question about the name of the church that you pastor. Mary and I attended once and loved it, but Rehoboth?
Rehoboth. Yes.
What's the story on the name there?
It comes from when Abraham, there's a verse and it talks about in Deuteronomy, and it says the Lord will make room for us. I did not pick that name out. That was already the name of the church before. It's kind of an odd name, but actually, if you Google it, I want to say Rehoboth, New York. There's like a lot of towns that are named after that. You won't find many churches, but it is a hard name, a very messed up name that people try to pronounce stuff like that. So it's Rehoboth New Joy Ministry.
All right.
And that was the intent, that hopefully you'll find this new joy if you come and stuff like that. So that's the premise of it. Yeah.
How did you end up becoming now, or technically, I've heard you say before, part-time pastor, but you preach every week, right?
Yes. And what I mean by part-time is I am not a full staff pastor. Okay. I do get a stipend, but I am not there for the beckoning call of the people 24/7, as where a full-time pastor is and stuff like that. And most of the time that centers around the fact, the size of the congregation, the financial responsibility. Prior to me, we did have a full-time pastor. But the problem is, from an economic standpoint, there wasn't enough tithes and offering coming in to support a full-time pastor. And even with me, that added a lot of financial burden to the people because he's relying on that for his livelihood. And that's something that I saw. My personal opinion, this is just me, it's not anybody else's responsibility to provide for me and my family. I would never put myself in that position because I hope I say this the right way. I'm not saying you become a hireling, which means that as
A hireling?
yes, that's what the Bible refers to it as. That is somebody who's hired to preach. The problem is you have to answer to a trustee board. You have to answer to a deacon board. And if they don't like what you're preaching or teaching on, there's an old saying, I hired you so I can fire you. and that's something that they cannot do to me because they didn't hire me. Right. And I have the freedom to preach and teach on what I want to. So nobody controls me.
You have that card in your wallet. You can just pull it out anytime. You can't fire me.
Yes, yeah. But that's one of the freedoms that I have, is that if you've been around long enough, you've seen situations where maybe the trustees has pulled the pastor along and say, hey, we don't like you teaching on that.
I've heard of stuff like that happening.
And that's not, because really you've got to have the freedom to allow the Lord to use you and teach on what he tells you to do.
Yeah.
Okay, and to not have that freedom, I would not do it, because I'm not going to let somebody dictate to me what I would preach or teach on. That's, I couldn't do it. It's just so restrictive and stuff like that.
So I'm hearing you're like the modern day Apostle Paul. Like you're tent making money.
That's
and
it.
Nobody can.
That's it.
And you preach on whatever God tells you to. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then the job that does pay the bills, that's Bangor.
Yes.
How long have you worked at Bangor?
I've worked with Lockheed Martin defense contractor for almost 31 years.
Wow.
In about 6 or 7 months, I hit retirement age. I've already hit retirement age with the company, but Social Security. So I've got a decision to make what I'm going to do. The problem is I love my job.
Cool.
And that's and matter of fact, it's funny. I think we're like the only.
That's the real problem.
We're the only country that retires. And matter of fact, retirement is not biblical. We are the only country who has this age that, hey, we're going to retire. It's just like, I don't know if it's this way when you were growing up, but at 18, you out of the house. That was that number.
Ideally, I'm sure my mother would have liked that.
But at 18, economically, you cannot do that now.
Yeah.
You can't. You cannot tell the kid. When I was growing up at 18, financially, you could move out, and get you 1 or 2 roommates, and all together, y'all paying $100 a month rent and stuff like that. But here, where we live at, when you're talking $2,000, $2,500 a month for rent, that is impossible for,
someone just getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah, working at Starbucks part-time, then going to Olympic College. And
that's it.
It's not
you
going to happen.
just cannot do it. So the kids get a waiver. This unlimited waiver now that, that's why you got 25, 30 years old still. And it's okay because there's no way I would push you out there in this economy just to fail. So it's and it's something that parents have to reevaluate. But then on the other hand, the children, if you live under my roof, I don't care how old you are, there's still rules and regulations that you have to abide by and stuff like that. So they have to learn to readjust too. You're getting cheaper rent should happily compensate.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So do you have kids in that position right now where you're
I have one son. I have 3 sons. 2 of them are out on their own. The one is with me. But it is that, he probably does make enough money, but we need somebody at home to do all the electronic stuff.
there you go.
So that is his sole purpose. Somebody got to put the battery in the remote. Okay, okay. Somebody's got to help with this phone. So that is his sole purpose.
That is very interesting. Just to think that our culture, that's 2 very strange instances in our culture where you have retirement and the expectation that you're out of the house by 18.
Yeah.
And that you're right. That is really baked in. It's baked into my psyche. Although now that I'm, working and providing for, as I get older, the more I appreciate work.
Yes.
I don't appreciate work less. I like working more the older that I get. And I think a lot of that had to do with the lockdowns. When the lockdowns happened, I was working at a hospital and I was deemed essential.
Essential.
I was deemed essential, and so there was that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to go to work tomorrow? And then they said yes, and I was like, oh my, and I had never felt so thankful to be able to go back to work, and that was like it was an overnight change for me. I was like, wow, I'm always going to appreciate knowing that I get to go to work tomorrow. And ever since then, I've been, more and more appreciative of having work to do. And now the thought of like, okay, yeah, not having a weekend is nice, having a weekend off from work, but thinking that I'm not going to be going to work after the weekend, I don't like that. I want to go back to work. I need to work.
Well, actually, we were built that way. We are built, and actually that's part of the curse, is that we would till, that we would work and stuff like that. For me, it's part of my manhood. To be able to provide for your family has to be one of the worst feelings. Because that's just, I grew up in a foster system, and to be taken care of by the state was the most embarrassing thing for me as a kid. And I promised myself that no man would ever take care of my kids, And even at a young age, you'd already vowed, whatever, if I've got to pick up cans on the side of the road, I'm picking up cans. I ain't gonna flip no burgers. I'll flip burgers. I'll do what legally. Because I don't think you ever have to do anything illegally. Right. There's always an option. Yeah. There is always an option and stuff like that. But I'll do anything legally to provide for my family. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. I just found myself within the last year and a half in a field that I previously had no experience in, sales and fuel. And Adam afforded me the opportunity to get the position. And now that I'm in it,
so he's the one.
He's the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Adam did a lot of work in a company called Cooper Fuel and Genesee Energy, and then provided me an opportunity to. And it was just in time because I needed a job, and I've been thinking about that recently because I think we're kind of like butting up onto this topic anyways, where there's I'm so grateful to have the job that I have and the ability to make what my wife and kid needs so that she can stay home with our little boy and, be a mom, and, she's very thankful for it. But I also don't, when I look in the mirror, I don't have any false pretense of I'm such a man and I have put all of this together and I've made this happen. It's really I was provided an opportunity by a friend who trusted me. So I feel like the only amount of credit that I can take for being in the position that I'm in is just having a relationship with Adam where he was like, I can trust Michael. And so based on that trust, I'm going to provide him with an opportunity. And that opportunity has meant the world to me. And it's not necessarily that I scraped and worked so hard to get to this position. So I don't know, when you're talking about as a man being a provider, I feel like, and especially as a man of faith, as Christian men, there's this interesting, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but there's two sides of this being a provider where I also am keenly aware of my need to be provided for before I can be a provider. I need God to provide me with oxygen and to keep my heart pumping, and then also provide me with the opportunities that I need to just not screw up. I need to be, anyways, it's this, I'm experiencing it now where this is probably the first time in my life where I have the opportunity to say, I'm a man, I'm a provider, I'm doing the work, I'm making sure that my wife and kid have what they need. But there's this other thing in me that's saying like, yeah, but you're still pretty needy and you're being provided for.
And I totally understand what you're saying, because I have a saying that God is a father's father. I did not know how to be a father. I did not know how to be a provider because I did not have that. So all of my success based on a father and a provider and a husband is God taught me. And God is still teaching me. So I have not perfected the craft of, first of all, being a husband. The lifelong journey, And because as people age, they change. I explained to my sons, there's a part of me they do not understand until they become a father. There's this gap in our relationship. My younger son, who is married now, is starting to, and actually it's funny because it draws you closer. Because now I understand my dad. Because there's a reason we can't go to Disneyland this year. We got bills to pay. And it's not that I don't want to take you to Disneyland. We have other priorities. And, maybe some other time it's in the picture, but telling your kids, no, everybody else get to go to Disneyland. Well, you know what? For instance, you were talking about my wife, she stayed at home with the kids. So for that to happen, we had to live within our means. And Disneyland was not
way outside of
it was outside of the means. Everywhere you go, you had to drive because you couldn't afford to go and buy tickets and stuff like that. And our vacations were close and, you just couldn't afford to do. I remember once, I'm originally from North Carolina, and driving cross country to go visit the family because that was the cheapest way. Putting everybody, buying plane tickets and renting was not in the budget and stuff like that. So, but that is that is where God begins to minister to you, because humility, and learning, God, show me how to provide for my family. Okay. I've never in my life bought a pair of Jordans, nor have I bought my kids a pair of Jordan, nor will I. The man's worth $3 or $4 billion. Okay. But you know what? They always had good shoes on their feet.
Yeah.
I've always had good shoes on my feet.
Right.
I don't need the name brand. And I think that's where he begins to, I don't need to impress anybody. I've never owned a new car. Probably never will own a new car. I can afford one, but, why?
Right.
Because I have this budget. And the thing about it is, once you begin to live that way, it becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's, it is nice to always have a little change in your pocket.
Yeah.
And now we can afford to do that stuff. But my father-in-law used to have this saying, you either pay now or play later, or play now and pay later. You don't get to do both of them.
You know Dave Ramsey?
I do.
So
not personally.
My wife and I have done, we've been in and out of Dave Ramsey's plan for years, but just recently, again, we're completely debt free. We just have our mortgage and, doing every single paycheck. I remember when we first got married, sitting down and doing that budget and working through those numbers to keep us within our means. It was such a chore for me, but it's got to the point where at this point, it is so freeing to do that budget, zero it out. I know the cash that we have for these budget items, like it's our anniversary this weekend. I have a cash budget for that. We're not spending beyond our means for that. I've planned for it. And it's such a freeing feeling to be able to do that for my family.
Well, finance is one of the biggest reason for marital problems. It is one of the biggest reasons and stuff. And you already got the stress of marriage. You got the stress of dealing with coworkers and life in general. Now to throw finances on top of it has got to be, and that's one thing I never had to experience. So it's like God saying, I'm taking this burden away from you. If you just listen to me, I'll take this burden away from you. So I've never had to deal with the financial part stress, because I don't do any stress.
Now you're saying that because you made enough, or because you and Sherry just click on that? And
we stayed within our means. We stayed within our means. I have not paid for a haircut in 40 years. And matter of fact, how much was your haircut?
My haircut was $31 yesterday.
And that's once a month?
It should be, but I drag my feet until my wife says, you look shaggy. She goes, you have a podcast tomorrow.
But they're like, there's just certain things. And to add to that, and this is, I believe in tithing. I've always believed in tithing. And the reason behind that is, as a kid growing up in a little Mount Carmel Baptist church in Taylorsville, North Carolina, I got my foundation in God, going to Sunday school. But the thing about it is, the whole time, somebody else was tithing to keep the church doors open. And they'd give us our little 50 cents or our $1 to go tithe, to put in the tray. But it's because somebody else was committed to God financially that allowed me to get my spiritual foundation. And as I got older, I went to the Marine Corps, and I guess I did my prodigal son thing. But then I came to myself, because it's like the whole time you're out there, you're remembering the teachings you received as a kid for free, because you weren't tithing. And then once I really gave my life to the Lord, I guess tithing became personal. And it's because somebody else tithed, I was able to get this foundation in God. So I promised myself that this is the way that I would repay, is I will always be a tither, because there's always another me coming along, and you can imagine even the congregations that you're a part of, how every Sunday somebody is coming in and coming out, and over the people you've met and ministered to over the years and stuff like that. Why? Because somebody else's financial dedication to God.
It's an investment in the kingdom.
It is, and that is always, I'm not saying it's part of our budget, but we've always tithed off the top. And that's just
the gross.
Yes, the gross. And it is, and you would be amazed at how many Christians debate that.
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't see how, but how you or why you wouldn't want to give to the kingdom. And a lot of times it does come down to, because I didn't budget right. Now I got to take my tithe and I got to go pay this bill and stuff like that, and so.
Or it's just fear. I mean,
but it goes back to something you said. The reason he got you the job, trustworthiness. Do not negate how important it is to be a trustful person. This is what's wrong with our society today, is there's no trust. And it starts at the top, because nobody trusts the government.
And the government doesn't trust us.
Trust us. So trust has eroded from the top all the way down. And most of the times you could probably count on your hand 5 people that you truly trust.
Yeah.
I got 1, 2, 3 in this room.
And
I trust you guys.
And then too, there are people that you can blatantly say, I don't trust you.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't ever negate our think how important that is. The fact that somebody trusts me,
What do you think? Because I've had to have that conversation with, and it's an interesting thing because I've had to have that conversation with family, where it's kind of like there's that push and pull of we're family, but our relationship is not established on trust. It's established on blood.
Yes.
And what really changed my thinking on it or developed my thinking on it was getting married. And, now I'm more closely related with my wife and my son than I am with my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister. Seeing that trust is more important. And it's not like you have to trust them to love them, but you want both of those things to be intact to establish a relationship that you can really rest in, I guess. But yeah, that's been something that I've been figuring out and navigating is just because we're family doesn't necessarily mean that we get to be super close.
Right.
Because the relationship isn't established on trust. It's established in this assumption that because we share blood, we're supposed to see each other all the time and hang out and be, I don't know, there's like a piece of loyalty that you lose.
Well, I've never believed in blood is thicker than water. I've never believed in that because I did not grow up with that. I did not grow up with that family bond. And just like you mentioned family, when I married into my wife's family, that's the first time I experienced real trust.
How old were you?
I was 27 when I got married. And so up to that point, I didn't trust anybody.
Wow.
And it was...
That's mind-blowing. I can't imagine, because even though there were some people in my life at a young age who maybe weren't trustworthy, at a young age, I still trusted them.
Yeah. I would say family members. I did. There's 7 of us all together. There's one sister that we have a bond.
You and your blood sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the rest of us are brothers and sisters. There's no bond. And
Related by technicality.
yes. And that and that's what makes our relationship with God so unique is he literally gives us brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers that there is a spiritual bond that's even tighter than the blood bond. Now, what's so special is to have a blood relative who's also your spiritual relative. That is, and that's why most people, when they accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, the first thing they do is reach out to their family. That's normally the first, because I want that spiritual connection, not just the blood. Because blood, but spiritually we're not connected. And I think that's what brought a separation in us is now to see your family with another family, and it's like, well, you don't rejected us. Well, you know what? There's nothing there, Honesty is a hard thing. It is. Honesty. Just be honest. Just be honest. It's a hard thing.
It is.
And especially admitting some things, just like, there's not too many people would talk about that. I'm not that close or I don't trust, especially come to family members and stuff like that. But that's just the honesty of it.
Yeah, sometimes my wife tells me I'm too honest.
Well, that's...
She has to, sometimes she has to take me aside. She goes, "Don't hug strangers."
Yeah. I guess there is a caution there because even with my wife, she'll tell me to be honest. And sometimes I won't be honest because I know my honesty will be hurtful.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
What do you do? So but you need another. When we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, about having certain relationships outside of your marriage, where you can go to them because maybe it's not as appropriate within the marriage.
The Spirit of the Lord dwelling down inside of us, as you're in a relationship, you know what your spouse's buttons are. Mm-hmm. You know. Mm-hmm. And
I like pressing them too. It's a lot of fun.
But to intentionally press that button, because really it's like you're sitting there and the Spirit of the Lord say, don't say that. But you say it anyway. And so really, first of all, now you start off, you were disobedient to God because the Spirit said, do not say that. Because is it really that important that you had to respond? You know, we have this, I want to be right, or you can be right and wrong at the same time. And what I mean by that is you were right in what you said. You were wrong in the fact the Spirit of the Lord said, don't say that. Just let it go. Mm-hmm. Ooh, let go and let God. No, you let go. And I know it's hurtful for me to intentionally push her buttons. Mm-hmm. And you know the off-limit subjects, you know, the weight, the dresses, the hair, the cooking, whatever it may be. There are certain subjects that are off-limit, you know, and you just live with it. You better learn to live with it. Well, that's part of the sacrifice.
Well, and she's living with some of it too.
Love covers a multitude of faults. It does. It covers a multitude of imperfections. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's the joy of marriage. That's the joy of it. Yeah.
I wish people would take divorce. Now, we're both from broken families, right?
I raised my hand too.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to see how many people get into marriage and they have that back door in their mind already. If this doesn't work out, if you do become a certain way, if you do look a certain way, if I all of a sudden feel like I don't love you anymore, there's that back door. But I know my wife and I have taken a stand. There is no back door. We're in this room together for the rest of our lives, no matter what, through all of our faults. No matter what I do, no matter what she does,
even with her loss, she still loves you.
Yes. Our commitment is to each other. So, it's I love our marriage so much.
His last day with her was his wedding day.
It really was. Yeah.
So, as a believer in Christ, before I can leave my wife, I've already left God. And before I can initiate and say, well, I don't love you no more, that means I don't love God. Because I stood before God and I took this vow. I think we don't understand the seriousness of an oath or vow before God. Family and friends were there, but I took this oath before God. I am the one sitting there crying, will you marry me? I love you and I can't live without you. That was me. She did not come to me and do that. I did that. I got down on my knees and said, would you marry me? And I stood there and I said, for better or for worse, for sickness or in health, to death do us part. That's what I said, you know. And I have to be reminded not so much of the vow I made to her, but the vow I made to God.
Yeah.
I cannot. And one day when we stand before God, He is not going to evaluate me on how great of a coworker was, how great of a pastor I was. He's going to evaluate me on the fact of how great of a husband and father. And I think we've lost the importance of those two roles,
Husband and father.
husband and father. Because if you look from biblical, as you read in the Bible, everything relates to a husband and a father, you know, and how important it is. And being a husband and being a father is the most important thing there is for me. If I fail at that, I failed at everything. The problem is what has happened. I'll take, earlier we were talking about Michael Jordan, who I would say is, if not the greatest, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. The problem is he failed at family. But nobody, and matter of fact, to be great here, he sacrificed that. We watched Tom Brady that last year. His wife gave him an ultimatum. You either quit football or he chose to go play football. So we idolize these people for the wrong reason.
You choose career and,
That's it.
and themselves over there.
Yeah,
family.
and that's and it's always every day is there that to be a husband and to be that father, that nothing else matters. And because not only that, you become dependent on each other, you have children, and as we were talking about coming from a broken home, there's something we all experience, and that's pain. The pain of a broken home. And I don't know your exact ages, but I could bet you're still suffering to this day from the effects of a broken home. I promised myself my kids would never feel this pain. They will never feel this pain because it leads people to drugs, to alcohol, to suicide, to lifetimes of incarceration. That's how powerful this pain is. And to turn right around and inflict it on somebody else. That's
Your own offspring.
Your own offsprings. That's sadistic if you really think about it. So that's why whatever I got to do to make this marriage work, you know. And this is why God has to stay at the forefront of it, you know. And you go through changes. I mean, that wedding photo, I think you said 13 years, and you look at it, oh, you were so beautiful back then. I'm still beautiful now.
She's still gorgeous.
But change. Menopause is real. Okay? I'm telling y'all. Okay. It is real. And no matter how much you hear podcasts or people talk about it or you read about it, until you're in it, it is unexplainable because we're men. And to be there, the window's open, she's got covers on, and the heat is on. And now you've got to come to bed. And you're like, what is this? The emotional meltdown.
Puget Sound Energy has me by the toe right now.
The emotional meltdown is just crying. I mean, most you don't even know what you said or what you did, and woo, you know, and you cannot pinpoint it. You cannot. Okay, today is It just and that is most of the reason you hear men going through midlife crisis at 40. Because that's normally because they're having the menopause. So men pause their life right now.
Menopause for menopause.
Yeah. And it is something that I'll never forget this. I was on my knees praying one day, and I was intense to God. God, change her, change her. And the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me and said, no, I want to change you. I need for you to be more loving. I need for you to be more kind and more gentle. And I'm like, well, Lord, this issue is not about me. It's about, no. And I was praying for her to change, but he was saying, no, you are the one that needs to change, because she did not ask for it. She cannot stop it. She cannot control it. Okay. You will never hear a woman testify about how good menopause was. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. You'll never hear that.
It's miserable.
It is miserable. Wow. Something they got to go through. And predicting, they used to be able to say around, but a lot of them are getting it younger in their 30s, early onset and stuff like that. And you don't know how long it's going to, you cannot say from here to there. You just don't know, nor do they know, so, and that is a part of marriage that is like, when you're dating, it is so far out of the, spectrum of even thinking about, but it will come. And it will be, look, in the world just happened.
We'll be calling you. We'll be calling you in 10 years.
I'm just going to laugh. Okay? Welcome to marriage. Welcome to marriage. But that's love. That is love, for better or worse. And it's a worse time in their life.
And the worst will come.
The worst will. That's why it says that. The worst will come. But the better will too. The sickness will come. That's just life. And you had mentioned earlier, because for us, divorce is not an option. We don't. Well, what we don't. No, we're just gonna work this out. We're gonna figure this out, and this is why it's so important to stay in tune to the Spirit of the Lord. And what I mean by that is I'm no different than anybody else, and you done upset me. Well, you know what? I'm going to go sleep on the couch. So I'm in there laying on the couch, and all of a sudden the Spirit of the Lord said, get back up and go into bed. But I'm mad. I don't care how mad you are. That's when we begin to desensitize the Spirit, and not listen to what the Spirit of the Lord is telling us to do. That's the beginning of it. So being sensitive to what the Spirit of the Lord, and he's holding us to a higher accountability than he's holding her. So don't ever forget that. And the reason is the women are weaker than men. Okay? So there's not equal accountability. There's a higher accountability that God is holding us to as men, because we're the head. Okay. And because you're the head, you're being held to a higher accountability to God.
That's that same. So it, with people who decide to be in ministry, there is also that like higher accountability within ministry as well. And that falls along the same lines. It's just kind of, God's put you in a position of headship within a church body. Does that go along the same lines? So like with husbands and their families?
It's funny you say that, because this Sunday I'm speaking on sanctification within sanctification. And what I mean by that is when God saves us, he sanctifies us and he sets us apart. A perfect example would be Peter. Peter was one of the original 12 disciples. Okay. But then God did something else with Peter. He broke it down, and then he had his inner circle. Okay. The other 9 were not part of the inner circle. Then he breaks it even further down and tell Peter, upon you, I'm going to build this. So Peter is even separated even more. Okay. So what happens with that sanctification is, as he does that, there's more restrictions put on you that you cannot do that other people can do. Okay. As a pastor, there's things I cannot do. publicly, I cannot be seen doing certain things because I'll use an example. I do not drink whatsoever because I am a pastor. It does not, I cannot speak for other pastors, but for me, I cannot do it. And the reason is sometimes people are looking for someone to sign off on them. And it's like, wow, I saw Pastor Keaton coming out of Safeway with a 12-pack. So it's okay for me to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a stumbling block. So because of that, he's put tighter restrictions on me because I am a pastor of things I cannot do. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is I can't tell you not to do it because you may not have those restrictions. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times what happens is people do not want to dedicate themselves to a certain call because they know there are restrictions that come with it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like marriage. You are now restricted. Okay. For you to even look on another woman and lust after her, you have restrictions.
Yeah.
You
can't
have to
even
be
loyal in your mind.
That's it.
Not just in your actions.
I am married. Oh, I'm married. I ain't blind. No, you're married. And with that marriage comes restrictions that you don't have when you're single. I have no female friends. I'm married.
Either, yeah.
Why do I need a female friend? Mm-hmm. I do not never have confided in another woman because I'm restricted now. When you're single, you can have all the female and male friends you want to. Okay. So once you make a certain commitment, you've made your little circle tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
You know? Now, the problem is, it's like I'm married, but I want a single mentality. You're looking for destruction right there. You know, so there's this restrictedness that comes with it. And that's why a lot of people oppose marriage is because of the restrictions, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mary and I attended Rehoboth New Joy once, and we heard you preach once. And I've been in church for my whole life. I've heard so many sermons, and there are a few over the course of my years of life that I remember, you know. But a lot of times a sermon is a reminder of something you already know. But I will never forget the sermon that you taught. You were talking about boundaries. And it coincided with some thoughts that I was having at the time. And you're kind of alluding to it in a way now even, but that was something that I just wanted to bring up, that you talked about how God sets boundaries for us, and those boundaries are life-giving, which is counterintuitive to what we think naturally of a boundary. A boundary is holding me back, you know, it's almost like it's holding my growth back, or it's keeping me from some journey, or, you know, it's a restriction, and there's this negative connotation with restriction in us. Whereas in your sermon, you detailed out, you know, boundaries as a source of life and one of God's tools to help us flourish, almost. And it really sent me on a path, you know, of thinking, and it also helped. And I think did you use Genesis in that one, the creation story, or did I superimpose that on it later?
You're going back way too far.
Yeah, it's been a couple years. I think you did, and I think you were talking about how, you know, for those of you who haven't read the first couple chapters of Genesis, listening in, even if you're not necessarily a Christian, it's a fascinating couple of chapters. But God is over the waters, and it's all chaos, and He separates the waters. He separates the light from the dark. He separates, you know, animals in the sky from the animals in the ocean, from the animal, and there's all of this separation and distinction and borders that create the walls that can sustain life, almost. And yeah, just I wanted to thank you for that sermon, and it was definitely formative for me.
Well, we as humans, we're naturally rebellious. We're born, because we're born sinners. So we are rebellious. Nobody could teach your kids to go hit their brother or sister, but they do it.
Or take their toy.
Because we have to teach them to be good. You don't have to teach nobody to be bad, because it's natural. So you spend your whole life teaching your kids how to be good.
How to share as opposed to take.
How all these things, because we are naturally rebellious. That's just our human nature, is to be rebellious. You know? And you can't beat it out of them, because some of our parents try. I'll beat this rebellion out of you. You know? Yeah.
Do you think that I do? Because I got spanked growing up, and spankings worked on me.
I spanked all my children.
Yeah.
They worked on me. I remember like dreading it, but I also remember like that worked. I don't want to do that again.
It does.
It doesn't work on everybody.
It doesn't work,
but it did work on me.
Yeah.
Like I'm thankful for the beatings I got.
And but no, I identify with you. I do, because you need discipline. My foster mom used to say, you don't have a choice not to listen. Either you're going to listen to me, or you're going to listen to some prison guard standing there with a billy stick.
Dang.
That you do not get to go. Even in prison, they got rules and regulations. They got boundaries. No matter where you go in life, there are rules. And if you join a gang, guess what the gang has? Even a gang, an outlaw gang. The Hells Angels got rules and regulations.
That's interesting.
You don't get away from it. You do not get away from rules and regulations. No matter where you go in life, they exist. Yeah.
That's profound.
Yeah. I'm full of this. As you get older, you have all these little buzz things that you can drop.
Hey, this is no buzzwords.
Yeah. But that is the fun of getting old, is I wish I knew what I know now when I was 20.
Yes.
But you have to live.
Do you feel old?
I do not. I am almost 62 years old. And it's funny right now, because even as I go to the gym and stuff, people don't even know how old I am. And they see the stuff I do, and it is like, but I do not feel old.
What's your workout routine?
I work out about 3 to 4 days a week. It's very intense. I am my workout is dinosaur. I'm doing what Arnold Schwarzenegger and them did in the 70s, okay? I'm not standing on some ball doing barbell curls or a burpee. I don't do no burpees, and just come on, y'all. And the one that gets me now is where they get on the barbell and they do the little humpty hump thing, the girls, and it's like, so I am still old school, bench press, deadlift, squat, just old school.
Strength.
That's it.
Strength training.
Yeah.
I did that yesterday. I do jiu-jitsu, and I've never weightlifted and then gone and done jiu-jitsu in the same day, and I did that yesterday. I just did a bunch of barbell training for an hour-ish yesterday, and then did jiu-jitsu last night, and I am trashed this morning. So it's amazing. You can double up and get trashed.
But then too, mind, body, and spirit, they go hand in hand. The physical, you need some form of release. If it's golfing, boats, you got to get it out some way.
Physically.
You cannot just come home and sit on the couch. You cannot do it, because you got to get, even we tell our kids, okay, kid ain't got no ADD. That kid just need to burn it. That's what they need. Go outside, run them to death, run them, Or you even do a horse, like, even they got sisters need to run this horse, and if they do it to animals, the dog, the first, you got to let that dog get out and get burn that energy off. We are the same way. You've got to burn that energy off some way.
And some people have more energy to burn off than others.
That's just it. Yeah. Yeah. Imagine just leaving your dog in the house all day long.
I live
how
in an
destructive.
I live in an apartment complex, and it's full of big, beautiful dogs, and there's nowhere to take them. There's not a patch of green for like real green grass for miles. But every time I come out, there's somebody walking their dog.
Yes.
Or I'm like, gosh, and the apartments aren't huge.
Yeah.
But it's a thing. It's a thing. A bunch of big, beautiful dogs that need to be running. And
If a dog needs exercise, common sense said I need exercise.
yeah. I gotta. That's the stage I'm in now because your kids are grown, your kids are growing, and I am a brand new dad, and working out has fallen by the wayside. Like I started getting my push-ups back in the mornings, but man, I'm in the sales truck all day. Get home, it's kind of like tired. Just want to like eat something and go to sleep.
So my whole life, every day, I've done at least 100 push-ups and 100 set-ups.
Okay,
Every
that's
day.
the minimum.
Every day, and 3-4 minutes.
You do both of those in 3 or 4 minutes?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and that's you need something. I watched my father-in-law retire and atrophy because he would just sit. And literally, if you watch over, you get to the point you can't even.
Yeah.
So what they did is they created these chairs that would
Launch you.
And that's like, you got to keep your upper body strength. So my favorite, this is my personal saying, my tomorrow is today. And what I mean by that is the way I take care of myself today is going to affect me tomorrow. And no matter what, savings. If you don't save today, 5 years from now, it's going to affect you.
Yep.
Your today. So you have to, today is important because of 5 years from now. In a few months or so, I can retire. I can retire making just as much money as I did working because of what I did 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
Because I saved. Because I had a 401k and I did it the right way. The worst thing to be is in your mid-50s and you talking about retirement and you have no savings.
That's got to be a scary feeling.
Woo.
So many people probably are hitting that wall right
because
now.
you did not save, you did not prepare. That's what it talks about. Even animals and insects got enough sense. The squirrel has enough sense that I need to go store up some nuts for the winter. Okay.
Yeah.
She normally don't call.
Is that your gym buddies? They're calling?
No, that's the wife.
That's the wife.
That's the wife.
That's Sherry.
Yeah.
Sherry is also one of the coolest and funniest people.
I'll call you back. Hello? All right, bye. Where you at? Where you ain't home yet?
Is she gonna watch this?
Well, y'all gotta give us information on how to do this and everything.
Yeah, it'll be on you. Yeah, we'll. James exports it, Adam uploads it, and then I can text you the link.
Yeah.
But probably, if I could tell y'all anything, is you have to start preparing today for tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna come, and it's gonna come quick.
Yep.
Even right now, where you are in your 30s.
Yep.
35, 30.
Almost 35.
But you see how quick that was?
Yeah.
And 60 is going to be here tomorrow.
I was telling my father-in-law yesterday, my oldest is 12. She'll be 13 this year. I got 5 more years with her.
That's it.
And she's 18.
That's it. And it comes quick. And
Yeah.
that's why you got to treasure these early years. Because you've got 18 years. My youngest son, he went to Western at 18. That he came back that his first year, never been in the house since. I mean, never lived with us again since. And it's like, literally, it's like, I'm gone, you know? And so you got this short amount of time to try to instill all of this wisdom and knowledge into them and stuff like that. And it is a short amount of time. And it's funny because most people don't know this, but from the biblical days, Jesus was 30 years old still living with his parents, okay? Because that was the age they went out. Up to that point, they were, and they weren't getting married in 20 and stuff like that, like we think. But you have this short amount of time to try to instill. That's why it's so precious. That's why you got to look at this. And that's why you cannot be selfish at this stage of their lives. You've got to create memories for them to want to come back and visit. I left my home when I was young, and my intent was I'm never coming back here again. That was literally my intent. I can't keep my sons away from us.
Oh, that's sweet. Cool.
That's
cool. I want that.
Because and sometimes it's kind of like, at one time he lived in Bellingham, and he's coming down for a birthday. You don't need to drive all the way down here for that. Yes, I do. I'm telling them not to, but we're coming, and stuff like that, because they appreciate what we've done for them, for the life that we provided and things like that.
But they didn't have to tear themselves away from you either. You launched them.
Yes.
And so they appreciate that. And so they know that their independence has a lot to do with your support.
Yes.
And so it's almost like an invitation.
Yeah. And you'll never stop being, just like they'll never stop being your children, you'll never stop being the parents. They're going to always be there, and even when they don't ask for money, you'll give them money. My youngest son got married, and I didn't know it was a tradition, but it's the tradition of the groom's son's parents to pay for the reception dinner.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And I was
the reception? Oh, I thought it was
the
rehearsal.
Rehearsal dinner.
Rehearsal dinner.
Yes, the rehearsal dinner. I did not know that, and once somebody had told my wife that, and I said, okay, so we called him up and said, no, we got it. He said, no, we'll pay for it. No, I got it. I was so proud.
Yeah.
I was so proud. When they could afford it, though.
Looking forward to the next rehearsal dinner, right? Yeah, so exciting.
But and I learned something else too. I am not just thankful for what they've done, I'm thankful for what they didn't do.
Your sons.
Yes. Yeah. Throughout their school, not once did we ever have to go to a disciplinary problem. And I think sometimes we need to be more grateful for what they haven't done instead of focusing on, because to imagine being in a courtroom with your child, to imagine being there when they're getting sentenced to jail time, to imagine going to a rehab facility and visiting them, or so, to imagine not even knowing where they're at. Can you imagine the torture and the torment of that and stuff?
I can't
like
even
that?
conceptualize that. My kid's 10 months. I can't even I can't even paint that picture in my head. I don't know how to imagine it.
So I find myself as being, Lord, I thank you for what they didn't do. What they didn't do.
Well, Jim, thanks for coming on to No Buzzwords. Thanks for being so wise and such. I think you're one of Kitsap's dads. I think that if I for me, and I know for my brothers too, you've been a good example of what a man needs to be, and I think that there's a a lot of young men still who are going to be inspired by you, hopefully. And yeah, just thanks for serving the community and being who you are and coming onto our show. And hopefully we'll have you back on before too long.
Man, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, you like it?
I did. I really enjoyed it. And just the fact this is the talk.
Yeah.
And that's something that, man, we don't talk. You know, we don't. And that was, I don't know, when we were growing up, there was nothing better to get the eavesdrop on the old folks' conversation. Ooh, that was like, wow, I could hear the old folks talk. Most like, get out of here. You'd be sneaking around the corner, hear them talk. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, let's see. Where do people, if people want to come to church, what time is service, and maybe if you want to tell
we are
anybody
located
listening.
at 317 Sheridan Road. Our Sunday school starts from 9:30 to about 5 minutes to 11, and then at 11 for about an hour and a half we do worship and service. We also have a Facebook, Rehoboth New Joy Ministry on Facebook as well. So
awesome.
we are.
Maybe we can get those links in the
We'll
YouTube
try to get
description and such.
Try to get the links in the description.
Thanks, James, for running the cameras and the mics.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, Jim, and thanks, Sherry, for lending us your husband.